Hello, and welcome to today's screencast on encrypting sections of your Web.Config using Visual Studio 2005 and specifically with ASP 2.0. My name is Robert Chilton Jr. and I'm a .NET evangelist from Microsoft Federal. Okay, let's start off by showing you my Web.Config for my little application here. Open it up. You'll see that I've got a app key, my secret here that I'm going to encrypt later. Then a connection string from my Northwind database, and I'm going to connect to that as well. Next, let me go ahead and show you the application running. So I'm going to build it and run it so you can just see how it works. And you see a little data grid showing some of the Northwind database data. And then my secret here is I'm really a VB.NET developer. Here's my connection string. Okay. Okay, now that you've seen that, I'm going to go ahead and encrypt it. And as you can see here in my DOS window, I've switched over to the version 2.0 part of the framework in my directory structure. Go ahead and type in ASP.NET regis is what you use to encrypt .exe. And I'm going to set my connection string to be the section that I want to encrypt. And you have to put in the path to the Web.Config, unless you're doing it off a virtual directory, which I'll show later. Okay, and then the next thing you do is you tell it which provider you want to use. In this case, I'm going to use the DPAPI provider, which is the Data Protection Configuration provider. Okay, once I've done that, go ahead and hit enter. It says encrypting that configuration section and that I've succeeded. Okay, let's go ahead and minimize this. You'll notice when I turn to Visual Studio, it is seeing an update in my Web.Config. So when I go to my Web.Config, you'll notice that my connection string now has a configuration protection provider, and there is my newly encrypted connection string. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. And notice in my app settings, my secret is still in clear text. So let's go ahead and encrypt that. Go back here. Let's go ahead and use the command that we used earlier. We're just going to change one small thing to point to a different part of my Web.Config. So erase all of this. I'm going to change it to app settings. Everything else stays the same. Go ahead and run it. See that succeeded. I minimize and go back. You'll see that it's updated again. And now you'll see that my app settings section is now encrypted. Okay. Let's go ahead and run our application here. Make sure that it still works. So build and run. And as this returns, you should see that the application still runs and it has the ability to decrypt our information for us. So there's my data, and here is my secret and my connection string. I'll show later the code that you use to display that information. And that is right here. So I'm just using the configuration manager and getting the app setting and then getting the connection string that I've got saved in my Web.Config. So that's how you do it programmatically to retrieve that information. Now let's reset the Web.Config so we can show how this would happen on a published site. Reset the Web.Config. I've changed my authentication to username and password. Let's go ahead and publish the site. So right click here and publish it to a web server. There's my path. I publish. You see, publish succeeded. Now let's switch over to my web server here, the IS6 web server. Go here and we'll look at our Web.Config. If I double click on it, it brings up this dialog, which now I can go to ASP.NET Edit and edit the configuration file, and you will see my Northwind configuration. There's my connection string. And here's my app setting, which is my secret here. So I'm going to say OK, close that down. First, let's show the application running. So I'm going to go ahead and browse my default ASPX page. So when it comes back here, you'll see my data grid still works, my secret is still there, and my connection string is still showing. Okay, now that we've seen it running, let's go ahead and bring up our command console here and run our command to encrypt this. So let's quickly change directories. Okay, and it's still in the Microsoft.NET directory under framework version 2.0. Okay, just like in our development environment on our web server, we need the ASP.NET Reg IIS. Use that to do the encryption, and PE this time instead of PEF. Put the section we want to encrypt, and since it's our web server, we can give it the relative path instead of a hard-coded path. And for some of these switches here, I'm going to give you a link at the end that will detail what all your options are. And then we're going to use our provider here. Okay, and there we go. And when we run this, you'll see that it succeeded. Let's look at my Web.Config. You'll notice my connection string now has configuration protection provider, and the connection string is encrypted, but my app string key is not yet encrypted. Let's minimize that. Oops, actually let's close that. Let's minimize this. Let's go ahead and now encrypt the app section as well. So we change this just like we did on our development machine. The app settings. And we tell it to encrypt it. You see that was successful. Now, when we go back to our Web.Config, you'll see that the app settings is now encrypted as well. Alright, let's close that. Let's close there. Let's browse our application. Close that. Right, browse default.aspx. Let's go ahead and refresh to make sure we have the updated version. And as you can see, it still runs, and my secrets are being